Please rise. Flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And we'll go to public comments.
Ken, prayer.
Thank you. Father, we'd just like to thank you tonight for the teachers, the administrators, the students, the board, everybody that has to do with these schools. We know that I really believe you have appointed many of these to be here, and we just depend on you, the light, the life, you are the wisdom, and you are the knowledge from on high, and we really need that to live this life and perform the things you would have us do in this life. And so we seek your face and your favor on this meeting tonight, that the heart of God would be present, and that your peace and your wisdom would rule. In Jesus' name.
Valerie, addressing questions.
Apologies, I'm going to read from my paper because I don't want to miss anything or give any misinformation. So, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys tonight. While I'm not obligated to respond to the questions that were posed by the Elk City meeting by Mr. Wong, I believe it's important to offer clarity to our district leaders about the purpose and function of our local union, the Central Idaho Education Association, or CIEA. First, I want to address a common misconception. No officer or member of our local association is paid for their service. All of our work advocating for educators, organizing meetings, negotiating, and communicating with members standing here right now is done voluntarily, outside of school district contract hours. The only exceptions are meetings requested by an administration or optional informational sessions at the beginning of school years, and those even remain unpaid. Our funding comes from local member dues. Occasionally, we request support from the Idaho Education Association, which is the IEA, for specific events such as back-to-school gatherings or student supply drives. These IEA funds also originate from member dues across the state. Similarly, the National Education Association, or the NEA, provides limited support for broader initiatives funded by dues from educators across the country. It's also important to clarify how those dues are used. Member dues fund professional development, legal support, insurance benefits, training programs, and access to staff experts at both the IEA and the NEA. What dues do not fund is political activity. Political contributions are strictly voluntary and handled through separate optional funds. No member is required or pressured to contribute to political causes. Regarding our governance, our local association operates independently. While we are affiliated with the IEA and NEA, we are not mandated to follow their positions or report our activities to them. Decisions are at the IEA and NEA levels are made democratically by delegates from across the state and our country. Like any democratic system, individual members may or may not agree with the outcomes of those decisions. Finally, why are we affiliated with the IEA and NEA? In a word, resources. Our partnership gives local educators access to valuable tools: legal counsel, professional training, retirement planning, certification assistance, and much, much more. These benefits are available to all members regardless of their political beliefs or affiliations. So in closing, our local education association exists solely to support and empower the educators of this district. We are committed to professionalism, transparency, and the success of our schools. Thank you for your time and your service here in our community as well.
Thank you.
That's it. We're moving on to a public hearing. All the public hearing over. Who do I turn this over to?
Lauren?
Superintendent Holthouse, Comptroller Carly Beeler, and Food Service Directors Maureen Barney. Take over.
We'll tag team, okay? So Carly has projected the fees for lunch services, the request for the increase. So in the past school year, in the 24-25 school year, at the elementary, breakfast was $3.15, lunch was $3.75. Middle school and the high school was $3.35, and lunch was $3.85. An adult, because that's an unsubsidized meal, is $3.85 for breakfast and $5.50 a meal. My opinion here, I'm not sure that anybody's had a meal for $5.50 anywhere lately. And we're asking for an increase this year to the next column over, $3.40 for breakfast at the elementary, $4.15 for lunch at the elementary. Middle school, $3.70 for breakfast, $4.25, middle and high, excuse me, $4.25 for lunch. Adult, $4.25 for breakfast and $6 for lunch. That is an increase of 25 cents, 35 cents and 40 cents on the breakfasts, and 40 cents and 50 cents on the lunches. As you're all aware, everything has gone up. You're not buying bananas for the same price you bought bananas a year ago, right down to napkins and paper products and all of those kinds of things. So that's a relatively small increase for those prices, for the food services. Maureen?
Yes, Mrs. Holthouse. Price increases are based primarily on inflation. The cost of goods has gone up dramatically. Our staff gets a raise every year, and I challenge you any place to find a meal for any of those prices on there. So it's not just the entree. There's a salad bar at both breakfast and lunch, side dishes. It's a great spread, but I feel to keep Mountain View moving towards the black instead of staying in the red, we need to increase these prices.
Are these updated on a yearly basis?
Yes, yes.
Has there been any look at, alternative sourcing for any of the supplies that we use? Is there any contracts out there or any contracts been solicited?
Chartwell's, the company that we contract with, does that, their own purchasing, and they're a nationwide corporation. So their sources, they far exceed what a local, if we were just one school and we were going to Cisco or whatever, our price, we wouldn't be able to get that same price.
I would like to see that though in, at least some sort of a format to understand that for sure. Again, I've heard that statement before, but unless I really see it and we have to have something back that we can look at, I've got to sit there and say, really?
What you might do, John, is look at Orofino, because they are their own, they have their own food service, and they have a co-op with other people, so you might call them and just see what their prices are, because I think ours are pretty darn
competitive because of Chartwell's. We looked at going, when we were having a lot of money issues, really bad money issues, we looked at possibly doing that, and it didn't save us money. We were actually saving more money.
May well be the case, but before we make a decision, I would like to see the information, see the data.
Well, we really need to vote on this because
Just so you know, we contract with Chartwell, so that information isn't necessarily, like, they don't have to give us the nuts and bolts of how they come to their price that they recommend.
Well,
but
again,
I certainly am happy
we have
to
a
get.
contract with them that, defines what they're charging us for what they're supplying.
Right.
And that's gonna be what it is, period.
and we can look at Orofino's prices.
I'm happy to get you the commodity
I would be glad
prices.
to do that and be interested in doing that, but I cannot support this without having time to look at it. In other words, to have this come forward here at this meeting tonight without any of the background information, I want the background information before I could support it.
So Orofino School District
go-
for 24-25, it was $3 for elementary lunch. Ours is
$3.15.
Well, no, now it'll be $4.15. The $3.25 for middle school lunch, so it's $4.25. This was I guess we should go off last year, sorry.
Yeah, last year, that's what I was
Okay, so $3 for elementary lunch, ours is $3.75, middle school is $3.25, ours is $3.85, and $3.50 for the high school, and it's $5.50 for the...
No, it's $3.50 for
again,
the high school. It's
Oh, sorry, $3.85, thank you. Middle and high school, so it's pretty darn close, we're within...
And that's fine. I'm
75
not
cents.
saying that it's necessarily a bad cost or a bad price, but without time to, evaluate it and look at it, other than, 15 minutes when we walk into the meeting.
Well, we did have this all week. She does email us out a week ahead of time, and the packets
I
are at
understand
the...
that, but
So we
some of us don't have
just
get a
have a
chance to look
comment,
at it.
Murray?
Thank you, B, for adding some valuable context to this. If someone on the board would like to get prices from Orfino on, just pick some random items. And I will work with Mrs. Holthouse and we will put together a comparison of what you're charged and what they pay. And I'm still saying these meal prices, when's the last time you took your family out? Charity said she went to Dairy Queen. It was like $72 for their meal, okay? I don't see this as that dramatic of an increase, and we need to cover our expenses. Food goes up every year.
Two things really quickly. One is just, Ms. Holthouse used the word projected. Are these numbers fixed, or can we expect they're going to change a little bit when we actually get down to writing checks? This is what they are.
This is the number they'll charge all
This
of
is
you.
it. So these have been set then. Secondly, and frankly I concur with the sentiment behind Dr. Mino's comments. I think it's proper that if a board member wants to
look at the actual contract, they ought to have time to be able to do that. With respect to the timely board packets, as we always get, there's no argument there, but this is not the contract. And so I support Dr. Mino in that. To that extent, I have a question I think I know the answer to, but I want to ask it in the interest of being open. When's the last time we put this this program out for bid?
Last year.
And I was here, I don't remember that. How did we just then present the winner and that was that?
We only had one bid.
Only one bid, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Is Chartwell the only game in town? I don't know if I should be asking more
No,
than you or not.
There are not many other food service management companies that would take on, you're considered a small district, okay, right now.
smaller.
You might see Sodexo either in Lewiston or Moscow, maybe down in Boise. Aramark doesn't come out here much. You know, we're rural. We're not the cities. Most of these contractors work out of the cities. And just as a comment about the success we have, so we just landed the Jerome School District, we have the Mountain Home School District, we have Blaine County School District, we have this district, and we have Lakeland in the Rathdrum area up north. That's how many accounts we have just in Idaho.
Very good.
Well, and what, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, that's fine, that answers my questions.
Can I, one clarification, you asked me about these prices. The board sets these prices
Right.
and they can't change without board approval, and
Once
it's
we
a
get to that
one-time a year
vote.
thing.
Okay, projected means
Yeah.
estimated so I just want to make sure we're being clear on the language, that's all.
And yeah, again, my comment is, I'm not saying that these aren't what we wind up having to do, but I think we need time to take a look at the details before we vote on it and, commit ourselves for the next year.
So I'm just wondering what that research would look like. What will you do in the next month to research this before we make another decision at
Well,
the
I
next
think,
board meeting?
again, I'm gonna come back and say, this gets back into the finances here within the district. Where are we? What are we paying for these things? Where are we getting them? What's Chartwell charging us? Have we looked at who might be available to, supply these same items, here locally or whatever in some area?
So,
What have we done to investigate
That's what we
alternatives?
did last year.
That's right, that's fine.
So
But that was a
Chartwell's,
year ago.
Chartwell's is the company that, and they do their own purchasing.
Sure.
So they find their prices. So we haven't gone out and looked for milk prices, commodity
And
prices, any of those kinds of things.
And that's fine.
We did do an RFP, and we pay Chartwell's to serve our meals in our district. And that, when we get to the budget hearing in just a little bit, you're going to see that prior to COVID, this school district and probably every school district in Idaho ran in the red on their food service
Okay.
and had to regularly put money into that account to cover it. During COVID, that was all different because this federal
Yeah.
student
food services paid for all of it. And so schools went back to the black. And we've run in the black since COVID, but you'll see during the budget hearing. And so that, it's a price that they're going to charge us one way or the other. We can raise our prices to get closer to what they're going to charge us and not run as close to going into the red.
Well, again, I would like to see what that is, and, you know, again, we have new prices for them for this coming year.
Yes.
They've provided information on what the new prices are going to be.
They've provided us what they're going to charge us
Okay,
for the year.
so how does that compare to what we paid last year?
It is more because their expenses went
How
up.
much more?
I
How
would
does
have
that
to
compare
pull-
to what we're talking about changing in the pricing that we're charging?
Do you have that at your fingertips, Carly? I don't know.
Chartwells has guaranteed, or has a guarantee that we won't lose more than, last year I believe it was 85,000, and this year I believe it's 90,000. Is that right, Marie? I believe
So,
But-
so we're gonna sell lunches, breakfast, whatever. At the end, they're gonna charge us $90,000 to have done that for the year. We can
We-
increase our lunch prices and our breakfast prices to close that gap a little bit.
How much will what we're talking about close that gap? And, you know, how big is that gap going into this?
Well, it sounds like it's $5,000 to me.
Again, it sounds like it, but again,
Is it
I'd like
part
to
of the
see
budget?
numbers.
Well,
Can we, I don't know the answer to this question. We can do this. We can actually set the price at the July meeting. I have to lose which month it is. It is June, right?
This is
Yeah.
June,
We can set the price. We can table this and make a
You don't make a
decision.
And again,
motion
Or just, we
I'd
don't
like-
make a motion
again,
anyway.
what I would like to
You
do
do it.
is, you know, push this back till July and go ahead and get information in that says, all right, this is where we've been, this is what our costs have been, this is, you know,
That's part of the budget hearing, and you will get most of that. So when we get to the decision on that, you might get the information you're looking for.
And I'd love to hear in July what you find out,
sure.
yeah,
what you research.
and if I'm
That'd be
still
great.
here, I would too.
You know, are we willing to go back out on the street? You know,
No,
what's it gonna take
absolutely
to go
not.
back out on the street?
You can't afford to feed kids at that amount.
We can't.
Well, the question is, you know, should we not go back out on the street and at least ask the question?
Are we able to at this point, or are we locked into Chartwells?
We will have to go to an RFP when we, through the
Correct.
deconsolidation. We have a contract with Chartwells based on last year's RFP
Right.
already. So we're
Okay.
committed for the 25-26 school year, but we certainly will go to an RFP for the 26-27 school years.
I'll say,
So
so
we're-
we're committed for 25, 26. And that commitment was based on last year's.
Your RFP that you went to last year.
And so we signed a 2-year agreement last year.
It's
It's a
a four,
four-year.
five,
Four-
I
four
think
years.
it's 4
I
years.
think it's a
4-year agreement?
Yeah.
Each
Okay.
year we get an renewal, though, that's just
Okay.
stating that it's year 1 or year 2.
Again, I don't know what happened to that last year. I don't remember seeing it or getting it. I don't
was
even know
before
what
me.
cared last year.
So
But again, you know, as I look at this today, it's one of those things that, all right, I think I would like to look into this more. I would like to look into more details on this type of thing, because we're talking about, you know, the cost to the people out here.
I will say that if we brought it back in-house, our minimum wage for what we have for our employees is $3 an hour more, and we'd have to offer Percy, so that alone would increase our costs.
And again,
And just like
that may be.
most people that are low income, that they're worried
Sure.
about the cost, they fill out the form, John, they get free lunches.
I understand that.
So it doesn't cost them a thing.
I'm not arguing that.
Well, and when you look at the business sector and you look at why Walmart and Costco can offer things less, it's because they buy nationally,
Sure,
and that's Chartwell's advantage.
understand that.
And so when I talked to Michael Garrett when he was superintendent, he said, we can't compete. Like, we're trying to
Okay.
go with Moscow and all these people, and we can't
Sure.
compete because we can't buy it at the price that these national
And
people
I
can.
appreciate everything that everybody's saying, but again, this is all hearsay. It's all, you know, what people, this is what we've heard, this is what they're doing, this is what they've told me. but I would like
Or
to
it's
see
my
something on
research.
paper.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I used to do the form, so,
Yeah,
it's not hearsay. I've
So
seen it.
we've already signed a 4-year contract.
okay, so we got a
We
contract.
can't
with
really
Turtle
have
now.
this discussion for another 3 years,
Well, we'll
right?
have to have
Oh,
it
we
next
have
year
to.
when
We
we
have
switch
to.
with
Yeah.
deconsolidation.
Okay, so when we
Yeah.
switch,
What
so
I-
that, shouldn't we just
Yeah, you're
make
Pretty
that
well
decision
already
at that time?
locked
So
in.
tonight,
Because we've signed.
the only thing on the agenda then are the prices for the meals. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it,
Okay.
not the contract.
Under the,
not
under the existing
anything.
contract,
Are we gonna
So-
charge this price for these mills? Are
What's
we
the
okay with that?
justification for that increase? I would like to see the numbers that give us the basis for that justification.
I believe in the budget hearing, you'll see that.
he's got a rate.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. We
Yeah.
can-
Yeah.
Actually, I'll
Been
open up to
shopping
any
grocery
comments
store
from
lately.
the public.
It's been pretty rough.
That's
I was
fine.
gonna say.
So while I understand that all of you have your own lines and this is also a voluntary position for you guys, I do think that it's imperative that you guys start looking at what is sent to you by your board clerk when she sends it to you. So
I
that
don't
you
disagree.
can ahead of time see what it is that you're discussing and ask those questions and get that information.
Okay.
Because this is one of those things that does impact other people, like Maureen, when we have to put off decisions because you didn't get the information ahead of time when you knew what was going on, you knew what was on your agenda. So I do appreciate your guys' work, but I do hope that in the future we can start seeing that happen so that what's on the agenda actually gets dealt with every time.
Moving on.
Well, in food at home, prices increased by 11.4%, and food away from home prices rose by 7.7%, just in the state of Idaho this year. And since 2019, the food prices have increased 25%.
And plus fuel prices
So-
increased to get it here, so.
Anyone that's been into a grocery store lately can see what's going on here.
Yeah. 10% doesn't seem out of control to me, but that's, yeah.
So basically, either the levy will have to cover this and people will get taxed, or people can choose to purchase a lunch at an increased price. So the cost falls on the people, one way or the other. This situation, people get to choose, do I wanna pay for a lunch or do I wanna pack it at home? And I would only be nervous because there's gonna be so many decisions to make coming very soon, and I think
And I'm not disagreeing with any of that, it's just that I would like more time to look at this, other than, a couple of days or whatever that we got the package. What I would like to do is say, push this off until July and make that decision in July rather than today.
We're gonna get more information with the budget hearing, right?
Mhm.
And then we can decide whether we want to push this off or vote on it tonight, right?
Yeah, because you won't make a motion until business section.
Yeah, we'll wait till the
Okay.
business section,
Alright.
see how your sentiments are.
So if that's the case, if everything's done, you can adjourn the budget.
We're okay? Any more comments? Let's adjourn the budget, or what do we call this hearing? Public hearing.
Yeah, I'm good.
We're to adjourn the public hearing and move on to consent agenda. Do we have
I
approval of
just wanted
minutes
to
or
say, yeah,
comments
thank
on
you
that?
so much whoever put this list of like signers together. I mean, I was looking at a couple of these, I'm like, oh, I thought was, yeah, that one, okay. Anyway, so yeah, thank you for doing that. Thanks for always auditing everything, every detail. I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I second that.
Who got the first second?
I did.
Oh, I didn't hear.
Beat you to it.
Any discussion?
I just want to thank the board clerk for her work on the minutes and the good, clean job that they are.
Yes, thank you so much.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're on to reports. Superintendent report.
Okay, I don't know if everybody is aware, but tonight is Carly's last meeting with us as our comptroller business manager. She's hiding back there. And we have a certificate for her, and I'm going to read to you. I apologize for that. Mountain View School District proudly recognizes and expresses its deep gratitude to Carly Beeler for her 3 years of exceptional service as Comptroller Business Manager. Carly brought not only a wealth of knowledge to the role, but also an unwavering commitment to clarity, transparency, and open communication. Throughout her tenure, Carly blazed a trail in building trust and understanding across all levels of the district. Her dedication was evident in every decision she made. Her tireless efforts led to the development of sound financial practices and processes that have brought lasting stability and clarity to our operations. Carly's integrity, professionalism, and the heart for service have left an indelible mark on Mountain View School District, and we thank her for her steadfast leadership and wish her continued success in her future endeavors. So we have a plaque for her, and then there is a plant at the back of the room. And then I believe that the trustees have some other things for you here. Yes, thank you. I have to say it's because I was Carly's 6th grade teacher that she's so awesome. It's yours.
My social awkwardness is
Turner Red. Anything other reports?
That was my report tonight.
Moving on to federal programs report.
Good evening, everyone. It says federal programs, but I'm wearing my assessment hat again. So in the fall, I presented a little summary of some data for you about student achievement in the district, and so I'm here now in June because we have scores from the spring assessments, and so I wanted to kind of bring that full circle for all of you. First, I'll talk a little bit about the Idaho Standard Achievement Test, and just to remind you, the students in grades 3 through 11 take this assessment, and our data is showing that our students are performing very well at the secondary level with strong academic performance across our core subjects, and they're often outperforming the state average. For example, in English language arts, our 11th grade class, 70% of the students were proficient, and at the state that was 59%. In math, our 11th grade also shined again, 43% proficient compared to the state at 31%. And our 8th graders came in at 49% compared to the state average of 40%. Science, just as a quick reminder, only 5th, 8th, and 11th graders take that assessment. And again, our 11th graders performed very well. 56% of our students were proficient compared to the state average of 39%. And our 8th graders came in at 49% versus 40% at the state average. So these scores are reflecting year-over-year improvement and are demonstrating effective instruction and intervention strategies, especially at our secondary level. In the early and intermediate grades, we continue to lag behind the state a bit, but we're still seeing good progress from year to year. So those are encouraging signs. And when comparing our current year proficiency rates against last year, so we're comparing ours against ourselves at this point in my presentation, I'd like to highlight our 6th grade group in the English language arts. They were 44% proficient, but that's up from 36% last year. In math, 6th grade, 38% proficient, but that's up from 31%. And 4th grade came in at 40%, and that's up from 35%. In science, 8th grade came in at 53% proficient, up from 36%. So we've had some really big jumps. So lots of positives there, but it does highlight our need to strengthen early academic support so our younger students can build a solid foundation that leads to long-term success in their K-12 education. That's the ISAT summary. The next is the Idaho Reading Indicator, which is a literacy proficiency for our K-3 students. It's our primary grades. Our 2024-25 IRI scores indicate an overall increase in our literacy proficiency compared to last year.
Our total K-3 proficiency was at 60%, and that was a 9-point gain from last year's 51%. I do have to note that the state averages aren't available yet. I don't get those till July. But here are key areas of growth. Take a look at those kindergartners, rocking it in at 75% proficiency, up from 57%. At all grade levels, they increased. First grade was at 46, up from 40. Second grade, 57, up from 56. And third grade, 65, up from 55. So these are really important gains, and they're showing that our current strategies are working. They highlight the importance of continuing to support our students with strong instruction and targeted help so that all of our students can keep making progress and build on their success. While the results are encouraging and reflect progress in early literacy development, especially in kindergarten and third grade, we have to remain committed to narrowing the gap between proficiency rates and state benchmarks. So in conclusion, the district's above average ISAT scores and our rising IRI proficiency reflect targeted efforts in curriculum alignment, teacher support, and student intervention. We'll continue to focus on foundational literacy in K-3 and sustained support in core subjects at the intermediate and secondary level. Those will be our key priorities moving forward. Additional analysis and detailed breakdown of all of this data will be shared with our school leadership teams, and they'll guide all of our instructional planning for the 25-26 school year.
Questions? Have you been, because I think a couple years ago we talked about tracking the COVID range of students. Are they starting to pop back up?
We have some data on that. It's not part of this report, but we've been watching that. They're growing, but it's just slow.
Yeah.
So we're headed in the right direction, which is the
We are.
important part.
Yes.
How does Idaho compare to, I mean, we're better than Idaho average. How does Idaho compare to the nation?
That's a great question, and I don't have an answer for you.
If you use NAEP testing, which is really the only nationwide test, because ISAT only is certain states, it's not all states.
Okay.
NAEP is all of it, Idaho scores well compared to
Oh,
the
really?
nation in the NAEP testing.
NAEP.
NAEP, and I do think, just as a general comment, that the scores nationwide went down on the NAEP last year, just across the board nationwide.
Anything else? Financial report.
My regular financial report is in the packet, but since I'm gonna talk so much about the budget, I just thought I would go straight to questions if anyone has questions about the financial report.
No, but I have to tell you, I was looking up things from like a long time. Add things from like before you were even here. Like 2009, 10, there's a whole.
Oh, like on the website?
Yeah, it's like all there now. It wasn't there before. Is that Michael?
You sure?
It was like before Carly came. Anyway,
Did we just organize it better or something?
it wasn't there before. Yeah, in the financials. Anyway, I was just looking at some stuff and kind of comparing. Oh, okay. Well, it looks great, thank you. Whoever did it.
So we're gonna move to budget hearing. You want us to move that?
If you're ready.
I need a motion to open the budget hearing.
I move that
Trustee
we open,
Dunn?
oh, go ahead.
Ladies first.
Trustee
I
Edwards?
move that we open the budget hearing for 25-26.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Back to you, Carly.
Okay, so we kind of have been prepping, in the last two board meetings for the budget because the April one was about what we're anticipating for revenue from the state and then, where are you going? State. And so we went over that pretty good, and then like I mentioned, I was dialing in on the expenses, but a few things were kind of still outstanding, and so obviously now we have information, things are still trickling in, but the budget had to be created. And so the majority of this, our budget is from the state, and so it comes in different forms. This section right here under state unit support entitlement is to support our health insurance costs for our employees. And then the one next to it is our discretionary costs from the state. Both of these were presented in April, and the calculations, oops, I apologize, they were in our May one in Elk City, which I didn't create a PowerPoint from, or PDF yet. But those numbers are based off of our support units, which is based off of our average daily attendance. And so our health insurance support amount is to $21,901 per unit, and our discretionary amount is $23,472 per support unit. And we are estimating 61 support units this year. And again, that's kind of back down to our attendance and enrollment going down. And so I'm not budgeting as much as we did this past year. So that's where these top two numbers come from. And then our certified, non-certified, and benefit obligations, which is the employer portion of PERSI and FICA, come into effect with the number of staff we have and their experience from our certified. And then we also get money from our transportation. It's always a year in the past. So for 25-26, they're going to be looking at our 24-25 spending. And for like the drivers' wages themselves, we get a 50% reimbursement, and for fuel, 50% reimbursement. But for anything that's like repairs and maintenance, we get a 75% reimbursement. So that's where our transportation number comes from. And then our special distributions, which include our literacy amount, and I kind of went through those pretty good in April at CB. And so we have remediation that's based off of our spring ISATs testing, so that's good. Kim brought that up. And again, it's lower than last year, and it's not because of the kiddos, it's because we have less kiddos testing. So their scores are great, we just have fewer enrolled. Same with literacy, and so that's based off of K-3 enrollment and testing, and again, just less students. So all of these special distributions go back into this number. And then the local funded part, we have interest on our investments, and so that's when the state pays us the approximate 50% that they're anticipating we get at the beginning of the year. We put it into our local government investment pool, and we earn interest on it. So that's where that comes from. We have other items for other local building rentals, other local grants, bus use, if kids pay for IDLA because it's a choice of a class they want to take that we don't offer. And then rewards, someone asked me what rewards were, but like when we pay or use our credit card and we pay it ahead of time, not that we like arbitrarily pay it, but it's due on the 9th of the month, and so we normally pay it on the 3rd, and so it gives us rewards, and we just put it back into the general fund because that's where we see it's most important. Extracurricular activities, so that's the kiddos paying for their pay-to-play sports. Our tort and personal property tax replacement, so that is based from the county, and it is not something we ever have to go out to vote for. It's just part of how the county operates their funding, and the tort is used to help offset our liability insurance. And then we do have some federal funds, and we could claim some indirect costs, which kind of supplement supply, or like paper materials we might use, or our time that we, or for like myself or charity that aren't directly with the federal grant, but it can help offset that. We don't always claim it, but it is available. We had our 2-year levy, and so this is the 2nd year of it. I did put the 2.936 million, but what will be collected from the tax patrons is less because of the state facility funds, are also known as taxpayer
relief, and we should be getting about 700,000 this year, and so it should be closer to 2.2 that we're collecting from our patrons. And then a line item we haven't seen in the past is penalties and interest. And that's because we hadn't had a levy in a while, and so if people pay late, they pay penalties and interest on it, and so that also comes back to the school district. And then our school district facility funds, I'm gonna talk about this in a little bit more detail later, but we had, from the very first year the state came out with this, we got about a $16,000 payment. And we, when I say we, I apologize, the board decided that to help lower the levy amount, 200,000 would go to this current year and 200,000 would go to 25-26. So that's a transfer to cover that. What I believe is exciting and different from the prior years is our projected transfer from SRS or forest funds or whatever you want to call them. Maybe they'll change names again, is $10,000, which obviously is significantly less than in the past. Last year was about $76,000, and prior to that it was about like 1.8 million. So that's exciting, especially because we kind of were hearing more positive news about it coming back and getting resurgence, but we don't know where it's standing. So it's good that we're not having to take more out of it. And then this projected balance brought forward, that is also a new line item. And so this year, 24-25, we had some positions open and we didn't fulfill all of our budget expenditures. And so, which I believe is I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but obviously good budgeting. We don't want to literally spend every penny we budget on and dry us out. And so we had a few certified positions and a few para positions that the paras were kind of fluctuated throughout the year if they left, and then we didn't get them replaced right away. And then we had some certified positions that we never could fill. And so we just have some funds that weren't spent from this current budget that will be brought forward. So that is our revenue. That brings us down to the expenses. And so from last year, we kind of created this list to help expand where it all goes. I did simplify a few things. For example, down here, oops, I went right past it. Maintenance of buildings and grounds. There was one called student or non-student occupied buildings, and the state isn't recognizing those anymore, and so they're all just considered occupied buildings of this the school district, and so there's not that extra line item. So there was just a few things, and then Connie and I were talking about, because the junior high is with the senior high at CB, I had junior high down here, but they were all getting mixed together, and so we just lumped them all together in the same extracurricular one as well. So I just wanted to clarify a few things that made it shorter, but our certified salaries, again, a lot of it is coming from the state, and then the local funded is quite on par from last year, because that's obviously our goal is whatever the state passes through to us, we pass on to our teachers and try to keep our locally funded as consistent as possible. Administration or administrative, so our principals and superintendent, same situation. Non-certified, that's kind of where like our special ed situation comes into play. Like we have those special ed needs, and so we need more paras, and so that's where a higher locally funded number comes in. And then transportation and others. So we have substitutes and we have literacy. Literacy is half of our kindergarten teachers because the state just pays for half-day literacy. We have some people come in and help with remediation in the buildings. We have a college and career advisor. And part of those also, college and career also helps with part of our counselor wages. And then it goes into trailing benefits. And again, I remember from like my first couple of years, people were like, what are trailing benefits? So again, we have PERSI, which is the state retirement. And so school employees, which are certified staff and bus drivers, is at a 13.48% that the district has to contribute, and then all others, so like myself and paras and secretaries and custodians were considered general members, and so it's 11.96%, and then FICA, which is our Social Security and Medicaid, and then we have health insurance that is our employee only coverage, and that's both health and vision and dental. And we have life insurance benefits. None of that has changed. It's the same programs that we've had in the past. Health insurance was a bigger hike than I was hoping for. I was hoping for 7.5%, and it came in at 9.5% increase. And then Delta Dental didn't change, and life insurance didn't change. What is nice is workers' comp is going down just a little bit because they started a new program and we're a drug-free employer, and so we submitted all of our paperwork, and so we're getting a 5% discount there. And then special education and Medicaid and gifted and talented. So the majority of that is our contracted services for OT, SLP. We don't need psych anymore because we hired a psych teacher, is she considered? Yeah, psych staff, and so we're pretty excited about that. We also found a new service, and they will be a great service, but a little cheaper than the last one we had. So positives all around in our special education, which is normally increasing, but we might just see the slightest decrease this year, which I'm tickled with. What I will say I did is for board and district professional services and board and, well, it says super because she is, but superintendent training and development, and district admin / business office supplies, those did increase purposely after the deconsolidation passed. In my mind, I was like, we'll have 10 trustees, we'll have the potential of going to the trainings, and I think it's incredibly important. And so I did talk with Superintendent Holdhouse about that, and that was kind of my one input of, I think those did need some significant increases. Staff training and professional development, both the leadership and mentorship pay and training and travel is provided by the state through one of those special distributions I talked about earlier. And so our leadership and mentorship is, we have mentors for our new teachers, and so we recognize the teachers who are mentoring them with a stipend, and then leadership for some above and beyond roles that we recognize throughout the district, and then travel and training for those teachers as well to keep developing their professional.
So none of that comes local. It all is from the state.
Yep.
It was like that last year too, right?
Yeah. Instructional materials, so our building budgets, we've went over that, and luckily through our special distributions, again, it supports the majority of that because in the elementary schools, we can use literacy funds for our K-3, and if we need remediation funds or dyslexia funds, Kim, she's been working and trying to find some dyslexia training materials as well, and so the building budgets are supported by those special distributions. We have renewal of current curriculum that is staying at the $75,000, but what we're excited for and we're planning on is there's a $25,000 opportunity with the state that Kim has all prepped and ready to go, and so do you want to speak? We'll talk about that later. And then we have our library supplies, and the majority of that, well, it's about 50-50. Half of it goes to our Valnet subscription, and then half of it is supplies to keep books rotating in the library and keep them up to date, or fix some mended ones. And then again, the remainder for supplies and for our special programs, and we have some IDLA fees. That also is going down. That was higher last year because IDLA is my new favorite company, and it went from $75 a course to $40 a course. So I'm pretty tickled with that. Accreditation, those are for both of our high schools. It used to be $2,400, $1,200 each, but they have upped that to $1,400. Technology, Michael's been a rock star about keeping us up to date with our subscriptions and contracted services. And so he's keeping all of that in check, and he's doing really good at his budget, so that stayed pretty status quo. Custodial supplies also stayed status quo because our guys did a great job of going out and finding a different vendor to give us a better quote, and it was significantly better because, as you guys remember, this year's budget, our custodial supplies is over because our paper products alone went through the roof, and so they went out and they reached out to a few other companies and saw what they could do, and for the exact same order we purchased at the beginning of this current school year, it was about like a $7,000 difference, and so I was really happy with that and them doing their research on that. Like I said, maintenance of buildings and grounds. Now we just have our occupied buildings, and then grounds and security. The maintenance did go up a little bit, which is kind of our normal inflation. I've been kind of using 5%. And then our transportation, again, we have all of our costs are either 50 or 85% reimbursable from the state. And then we have our bus depreciation fund. So all of our buses create or have a depreciation schedule. And so at the end of the year, the state goes, okay, your depreciation amount was this. And so you transfer it into it, and it just allows us to keep buying new buses. And so that's driven by the state. And then district vehicle expenses did not change, or it went down a little bit. I think last year it was $97,000. Utilities stayed the same because the electricity I kind of have based on a very high or like a cold year, and I think that's just good to keep with. And then our telephone is actually going down because Michael found also a new service that is giving us a better deal. So I feel like I'm including myself, and I shouldn't. Our staff here at Mountain View has just been really diligent about going out to different vendors and seeing what kind of prices they offer, and so I'm just really tickled with that. So the kind of bummer on the last part of this page is property and liability insurance. We got notice just last week, and my budget was already complete, but we are with Morton and Company, and they dropped iCrimp, and so they went out to a new vendor, and I was hoping for a 10% increase, and it is 18.5%. So that number I was hoping, so for just under 184,000, and it's just going to be over 195,000. So they kind of have us in a spot where we don't have another option at the moment. There's not enough time to go out to bid. So that is my bummer of the description. But extracurriculars, those I also thought stayed on par, and there wasn't anything that jumped out at me that was concerning or that needed increased or decreased significantly. Another new line item you'll see is, as we were talking about earlier, the food service fund had a really good balance in it from the COVID years when all students were eligible to be free, and we got reimbursed from that. or from the state for all of them. And so it provided a really good balance in there, and we have dwindled that away. And so this current year for 25-26 will be the first time in a while that we have to transfer from the general fund to support our food service fund. And so again, that's another reason for the increase of costs for the kiddos' meals, is to try to keep that as low as possible. So with that being said, another item that I haven't done in the past is a comparison, because I didn't think it was appropriate to do a comparison while I was still getting familiar with the job and adjusting like how I was presenting it. And so last year to this year is the first time we can have pretty decent comparisons. And I'm now a little kicking myself. I wish I would have had a percentage column because I love percents. But you can see that the state did increase their funding to us. The majority of it is coming through certified because they did up the minimum quite a bit. So nothing bad there. You'll see that other local and rentals went down. It's because last year we had this really awesome program called Voc Rehab that one of our special education teachers headed up, but they didn't offer it this year. And so we put it through general fund last year as directed by our auditor, and this year we're not doing it. So it's not necessarily a decrease to revenue because the expenses offset it, but that's why that shows it. And then tort and personal property tax is an increase of 3% per the county. And again, penalties and interest is a brand new line item. This transfer from modernization funds, this was Carly oops, if I'm being honest. So we got that $4.4 million from the state, and it needs to come out of that fund. And in my mind, I was thinking we were transferring to general fund and spending it out of there. So that was misconception on my part that I do apologize about. And so it's not a transfer into the general fund and expense out of the general fund. It's just all through the modernization fund per the state. And so that's just why it's not there. But again, the transfer from the school district facility fund stayed the same per our discussion. And then our projected balance brought forward, we always talked or had this number in there because it equaled our contingency for unknown. But again, I already went over that. And then, like I said, I apologized earlier, I said 76,000. It was 72,000 last year from transfer of SRS to 10,000. And so there is quite the increase, but again, that mostly comes from the state, as you can see in salaries and benefits, and then our balance brought forward. And then in expenditures is the same situation. So certified and administrative are up from the state. Transportation, it is still, or I just had last year when I averaged their route hours per day, I had like an extra half hour in their route hour. And so it was just, again, it's not that their days are decreasing. I just had a misunderstanding in my information. And so their salaries against this year's budget were off just a little bit, and that's why the decrease. Health insurance, again, that kind of is showing that 9.5% increase, which is a bummer. And then life insurance decreases because we're going down in employees through attrition. There was just a few opportunities we saw where an employee resigned and we didn't need to fill it. And so we just left that position or filled it in other ways through other periods, but didn't replace the person itself. So it's not that life insurance expense went down, we just have fewer employees. The workers' comp, again, is about that 5% decrease for the drug-free program. And so special education, I was talking about how we did find a cheaper service, but there was more travel and training than I anticipated this past year. And so I just want to keep that in mind for my special education is how much that department is changing and is so driven by the state and federal, and so I up the training part. And then again, we talked about the board increase because of the deconsolidation. And staff training and professional growth, I apologize, that looks interesting. It's because last year I was anticipating our dyslexia funds from the state coming out as training, but we really used it more as instructional material. So it went down there, even though that's also a decrease, but that's more driven from our reduction in enrollment. And then, like I said, technology and custodial is the same, and then maintenance went up, and transportation, our repairs and maintenance went up, and utilities, again, just a little increase because the majority of it was kind of offset by our telephone decrease. And then unfortunately, the property and liability, that will be closer to $28,000. And then the transfer to food services is new. So that kind of goes over our general fund. I want to talk about our other funds, but I have talked long enough and I should take a break if you guys have any questions. It wasn't a very long break. Okay, so our other funds, we have a lot of them, and so we have our SRS, and I don't know if you guys, that's a little too close for me. I don't know if you guys recall our conversation very well, but we talked about having kind of like part A and part B, just acknowledging that we need this reserve account from the recommendation of our auditor. What's kind of nice is we're building up that reserve account as a carry forward balance in the general fund, as I was talking about earlier. And so in reality, we probably could recognize about 700,000 of this back into the available amount. We still want to represent about 2 months worth of expenditures like we talked about last year. But because we have the balance forward of about 700,000, that is, in the auditor's eyes, considered part of the reserve account. And so we do still have these funds. The really big I keep using the word bummer. I need to be more positive. The item about secure rural schools is that normally this number is between $1 million or 900,000 and $1 million. This year, I had long conversations with Superintendent Holthouse about, I'm like, I just don't feel confident that it will get turned around by the year end and we'll get our payment. And I'd rather not show it. If we need to amend the budget, we can. But this $50,000 just recognizes interest earned on the account. But as of right now, again, there's some rumblings at the state that it's kind of getting another push through. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
I'll give you the break you need.
Thank
you. Secure Rural Schools, this is today's Tribune, has passed through the Senate and is now to the House. So that was great news. And while I am giving Carly the break, if you turn 2 pages in, then you have Governor Little's speech where he warns education leaders to prepare for spending cuts and freezes. And they're talking at about 5%. And so for those of you who were around when that happened 6-8 years ago, February payment or in the May payment, they would just say, well, you're supposed to get this much, but we're only going to give you this much. And so my recommendation to my staff is really lean into those needs and wants, and only if we need it do we get it.
Apply in Washington?
Hold back on those wants. Pardon?
Apply in Washington?
and then just being super careful about everything we do, which I have to say, my friend Carly's pretty tight. Anyway, I hear her in her office saying, no, 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 no. And if she doesn't say no enough, I say no a lot. So with the $700,000, we've been tight. We've been holding the line, and that's important. that secure rural schools is really important though, because it is what's going to save us if something happens, if there is a holdback. That's what we're gonna have to lean on is those dollars.
Otherwise, the taxpayers locally are gonna have to vote on that. It's gonna increase all of that, so.
Yeah.
I do apologize, I wanted to just emphasize, I have a page after this that shows the expenditures, so, please don't think these numbers are year-end numbers, I just wanted to show our balance forward, the new funds, and then this next page will show the new funds less expenditures, so I'm getting there, but, then we have our student activity funds, and those are all driven at the building level, so they're fundraisers for FFA, baseball, softball, all that good stuff, and that is driven by our building principals and our athletic directors and our coaches, and so we hold those very accountable and make sure they're being spent appropriately, but that's a building level decision that they make those, and so they have good balances in them, which is great. They have some good fundraising, but they also, you'll see down below, they know how to spend. But they get uniforms and all the good stuff.
Travel.
We have also talked about this Student Occupied Building Maintenance Fund. We've kind of talked about it since the first year I've got here. I gave Superintendent Holthouse some ideas for it next year, and so right now it's just sitting pretty like it has the last 3 years, and as long as I could find before me. Then we have driver's education. We have a little balance forward there, and these funds are driven from state reimbursement and the kids who pay to take the class. We have CTE, which is our career technical education, and our teachers there get a pretty nice chunk of money. In the last 2 years, they, halfway through the year, also got one-time additional funds, which is funny because now it's 2 times. Maybe it'll be 3 times, and that number will go higher, but like our business department down at CV are getting new computers, so great stuff happening there. Idaho Career Ready Student Fund was a grant that we just have, it's an item, it's sitting in not Missoula, Billings. It's just needing to be picked up, so we haven't paid for it yet. That's the remainder of that grant. We have a state technology fund, and so that's Michael, and as you can see, oh, that's embarrassing, I didn't do my formatting right. So Michael is fairly frugal, and he has a carryover. He's as good of a spender as Alyssa and I, and so he'll have a little bit more money in his tech fund. And then safe and drug-free program, same situation. That number is going down in revenue from the state than it did last year because, again, based off of our enrollment. We have this new grant, School Resource Officer Grant. It's a 3-year grant. That was pretty exciting to get. And so based off of the state kind of pays in advance. It's not necessarily that we have a carryover. They just, they pay us quarterly and then the county bills us monthly. And so that'll wash out after the 3 years. And then all of these that don't have a carryover are our federal programs. So Title I, 4, and 2, and then IDEA, which is special education for our school age and then special education for our preschool. We use those funds on our support staff, and they get used up every single year, so they're not a carryover. Carl's Perkins kind of aligns with CTE. It's for our programs, or career technical programs. We have this IDEA mini grant in the past. I was hoping for $5,000, and this is a positive. Yesterday, Mrs. McKinney and I got notification that the amount she asked for, she got the whole amount. It was almost $9,000, and that's going to help with our with special education training. And so I did have that higher in the general fund, but now that we got more in the grant than we were anticipating, maybe we won't have to spend it all, which again is always the goal. Johnson O'Malley is another grant.
Is it home? Oh, no, homeless is
Johnson
down there.
O'Malley,
No, it's tribal.
O'Malley's tribal.
Oh, okay.
Tribal, yeah. And then we have a Title IX-A, which is our homeless students, and Kim applied for that, and it was $6,000 a year, and so we still have about $15,000, and that's been helping our kiddos, which is great. We're just finishing up our Stronger Connections grant. We have a small one-time federal award, a grant. So a lot of these are grants that we have ideas for, and so they're getting used up. So child nutrition, we're anticipating $85,000 carryover, but down below you'll see that we'll need the transfer in of in here as part of the $10,000 transfer from general fund to cover our expenditures. And so this amount includes our Chartwell's program or contract and other odd and ends that come up, like we had a refrigerator go out, but look, we actually had a grant that covered that. And so there was a grant in here as well. And then we have our bus depreciation fund that I talked about earlier that gets transferred in from the state. It's not that $220,000 earlier because there's $10,000 worth of interest income in there. And then again, our school district facility funds. So you may be wondering why it still shows $442,000 in there. We didn't need to transfer it, and so I also told Superintendent Holdhouse some ideas of how that could help next year with the deconsolidation, and so I have some thoughts, but I think that's probably more appropriate to go into further detail when we're talking about deconsolidation and start talking about the splitting up of everything. So, and then it'll maybe earn about $5,000 in interest. We have school modernization funds, and so the rollover the carryover is mostly from what we got from the state, but then interest. And we really didn't spend that much this year, which was nice because it's good to, we have some roofs coming up and we know those will be big expenditures.
And can I chop in here?
Yeah.
Every dollar we are spending out of that, we're carefully tracking so that when deconsolidation happens, it is appropriately split.
I believe I showed that spreadsheet at the
You did.
CD meeting, yeah. And then we have various scholarships and an estate fund that supports our kids. And so that is what we're anticipating to come in. So the expenditures that offset that, part of Secure Rural Schools, and again, a conversation I had with Superintendent Holdhouse, is I put $10,000 of this expenditure to transfer to the general fund, $50,000, and I went out on a limb. We used $1,100 this current school year to pay the county to create the maps for the deconsolidation. I just thought, just in case, let's put $50,000 aside for it. I'm not hoping we spend it, like I'm not saying we should, or need to, but it's there and it's marked as that expense, and then that way if something does come up, we don't have to wonder where it's gonna come from. And then the $300,000 was in reference to the math curriculum that we did not purchase this year.
So did you put that under special project funds? Where is that? The 50,000 for the mapping and whatever, just in case? Where did you?
In Secure Rural, it's an expense from
okay.
Secure Rural Schools.
Okay.
So of this 360, 300 for math curriculum, 50 for potential costs, but again, it was just to be on the safe side, and then a $10,000 transfer to general fund. So our student activity funds, again, they bring in, they spend, they do a pretty good job. I do always budget that this maintenance fund gets spent just in case. Like, it's a recognition at the state level going, if there's an item that comes up and we have to use that fund, they match it up at the budget level to go, well, did they kind of warn us that might happen? And so again, I'm hoping it doesn't get spent because I have a thought with, or that I gave Superintendent Holdhouse. And so, but again, it's kind of one of those things that if you spend it, they always match it up and go, what did you tell us about it? It's just kind of that checks and balances thing. So it's just there, but I've done that every year and it hasn't changed. Driver's education, again, just a small kind of carryover because the majority of it does get spent every year. CTE gets spent every year. This grant should be fully spent. Technology, again, Michael could have a carryover, but I referenced that it will get fully spent. We've never really had big costs under safe and drug-free money, so I kept that little with a carryover. The school resource officer, again, just a little carryover because of how the state pays us ahead of time. Title, IDEA, Medicaid, Carl's Perkins, mini grants, they get fully spent, so a zero balance. And then Johnson O'Malley, it does seem like we get a little bit more from the state than that goes out, so it does have just a little bit of a carryover. And then this is where you see child or our food service and why we had to transfer $10,000 from the general fund, but because of our expenditures, it will wipe it clean. And in the past, we had a carryover, so that'll be the first time. And then bus depreciation, for the first time since I've been here, I have $0 expenditure, and I felt confident in that because if we were to buy a bus, which is the only thing that can come out of bus depreciation, we would have had to put in a bid last year, and we didn't. But buses are about 18 to 19 months out, so there's no way we get one next year, even if we put in a bid tomorrow, which we're not. And then facility funds, again, this was a transfer to general fund, and I'm just being cautious. I am in no way, shape, or form saying that we will spend $1 million in modernization. It's just kind of that caveat of just in case something happens. This various memorial, scholarship, and estate, that is pretty significantly higher because the Free Press did a really wonderful article about Kevin Zumwalt and the estate he left Grangeville High School for the wrestling program and other sports programs. And we have a really fun idea, and we're just still trying to work it out. And it would be a wrestling building / concessions / booster facility that would be up by the football field. And so I have no idea if it can get completed in 25, 26, but if it does, again, I just wanted to reference that those funds would be spent. So those are the other funds. A lot of people see this number when I post our big state budget to the website, and they go, well, you have $8 million, why don't you use that? And I just like to reference like what that all entails and how we can't just willy-nilly spend it. And so I added that this slide last year as well, and I just thought it was good to continue it. And then the one I just put on your desk at the beginning of this is our 4-year comparison, and this looks not like my normal spreadsheets because this is driven by the state, and it's what we have to post in the paper after, if the board approves the budget tonight, I'll post it in the paper. And so it has the general fund on this side, and then all other funds like I just talked about on this side. And it has actual numbers of 22, 23, actual numbers of 23, 24, and then the budgeted numbers from this current year, 24, 25, and our budgeted numbers from 25, 26 that I just went over. And so I wanted to give you guys a look to make sure that you knew what was being posted in the paper if you guys approved the budget. But all of this will be posted to the website, and I am back open for questions.
Just on our radar, are we gonna look at doing one of the roofs this year? Okay. Just because it's been kind of on the, for a long
It was definitely a goal to even have it done this summer, but we ran out of time, and then like our focus went to deconsolidation, and there was just a lot of other things, but it's high on the radar.
Wasn't it Jim's?
Well,
Jim's
GHS,
is
Jim's
done.
just,
GHS.
yeah, the GEMS building was just done, the, what is that called, the gym?
Yeah.
But, okay, and
And the
then
primary.
maybe vans,
Vans would be nice.
just our wish list for next year.
Oh, for sports?
Yeah,
For-
just in general, or even for small bus routes, or,
They have to be yellow for, can't use a van for a small bus route.
Yeah, they
um,
do have
Has
to
to be yellow.
we can paint it yellow.
But they can be white.
You
to
can
go
use, you can use a
sporting
van
events.
for individual student if like it's a wheelchair accessible or.
It was just
special-
Lacey's wish
special
when
busing.
she came in,
Yeah,
and
I
since she's
remember
going out,
Really wanted
Still a
vans.
wish.
yeah,
Do it for Myers.
Yep.
Be a rally.
yep.
Rally. So,
Okay.
any other questions? We need a motion.
Two things. Coming here almost 4 years ago, this is just absolutely night and day in terms of communication and it's amazing. Thank you. I just want to double back. Second thing is, would you introduce the person to your right?
Thank you, Larry. I'm so sorry. Everyone, this is Connie Green. She is our, well, officially not anymore, but she was our GEMS financial secretary, and so she does have school background, and so she knows like the nonsense I'm talking, which is great because anyone who's worked in the school, like I just thought immediately that would be so helpful, because school talk is just way different than public finance talk. And so, yep, my last day is the 30th, and Connie's been training with me on Wednesdays throughout May and into the last 2 weeks of school in June, and then this week. And so it's been great, and I know she'll rock it.
Follow-up, since I kind of got the ball rolling with those Q&As back when Mr. Higgins was here. Is that going to resume? I hope, the monthly Q&As you provide.
We kind of talked about that because deconsolidation passed. It was really driven by like, what does a student cost in Elk
Right.
City, or what does a student cost in Grangeville? And so I guess I maybe made the executive decision because deconsolidation passed that it's kind of a, I don't know.
I think
Is
we'll
it-
continue, but they'll look very different because
Yeah,
we'll be
it's
looking
just-
for.
Okay.
That's some good basic information that I
Yeah.
think a lot of people appreciate, so.
Yeah, like how many kids we have
And
in
how
the
many
school,
teachers,
things
how
like
many
that.
administrators.
I love that
It
report.
was,
I like
it was
seeing the
really good.
enrollments.
It made it
Okay.
really easy to kind of keep an eye on, not to keep an eye on, but just understand what was going on.
Okay.
So again,
Yeah,
thank
she-
you.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions?
No,
We
I
have a
just
motion.
agree with Larry, my gosh.
I know.
Remember how many times we were told, oh, you won't understand, don't worry
Right, oh,
about it."
yeah, to our
Okay, done.
faces. You wouldn't understand.
I do have a question. Again, my question's related to the, things I brought up earlier, the food service, were not answered through what we just did. If we approve this budget tonight, will that automatically approve what we're talking about for that food service or
Food
not?
service is next item. There's an actual
Okay.
item for food
Okay,
service.
all right.
But we already have a
already
contract
have
with
a
Chartwell.
Contract is in place.
Right.
Yeah, but
That's in
there is an
place.
agenda item to approve
Yeah.
those food
But we
service.
can't change the,
So-
sadly.
Okay.
I mean, not
And-
sadly,
And I'm
but-
sorry,
Okay.
so when Carly was saying these are our expenses for food
Right.
services and we're gonna be short, so we have to add 10,000.
Yeah.
So raising the prices for the meals is to close that gap.
Okay.
So I'm gonna clarify here. The contract is already signed.
Right.
If we vote yes, we're gonna have the people who are buying the meals pay for that. Pay
Okay.
extra.
Instead of,
If we
from
vote
the
no,
levy.
the taxpayers are gonna pick up the bill. So if we vote no, we want the taxpayers to pick up the bill, right? Because we'll be short.
Okay.
Oh,
If we
I-
say
I follow.
yes, we want the people eating the meals to pick up the bill.
But
that
I
is
would
not
like to
this
review
agenda.
No, that's
that.
not that. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, we're
Yeah.
talking food
I wanna-
service.
what I'm gonna wanna
That's
do
what
is
we're
push it
talking
off
about, right?
A month.
What's that?
What I'm gonna wanna do is push that back a month.
And I
Okay.
think we heard the superintendent say that was possible, it wouldn't do any harm. to table it for a month, and I think out of respect to Dr. Meno, we should do that.
But anyhow, okay, just trying to figure out where we're at.
Okay,
Dr.
so
Minow?
we're on the budget. Oh, sorry.
Would you send me an email of like what information you would like
Sure.
for that? And then I can have some time
Sure.
to gather that.
All right, I can do that.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the budget.
I move that we approve the budget for the 25-26 school year as presented.
I'll second it.
No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Now, moving on to
No, I need a motion to
close.
close the budget.
Need a motion to close.
I move that we close the budget hearing, the budget
Yeah, budget
hearing.
hearing.
Okay.
I second that.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, back to business. Approval of food service fee increases.
I move that we table the food service fee increase to next month's agenda.
I second that. Thank you, Mrs. Edwards.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Thank you.
How are you voting? Who seconded, please?
I'm.
Who
Okay,
seconded?
I have to say
Larry.
yes, yeah.
You're saying,
Aye.
okay, so
Aye.
4-1.
I don't think this is necessary, but
Right.
but out of respect to
Okay.
Trustee Minot.
Agreed.
Okay. Approval of superintendent public instructions order under section 33-307.
Okay, so in your binder, you have the official order from the Superintendent of Public Instruction, Debbie Critchfield, officially directing the county to create the new trustee zones, creating the 2 new districts, so that document is there. We did have 31 applicants for trustees in the different zones. Each of the 10 new zones, so there's 5 for Clearwater Valley, 5 for Grangeville, each of them had at least 2 applicants. So I was over the moon, thrilled with that. Those have been submitted to the state. They had some clarifications today that will be clarified tonight or early tomorrow morning, and then they will go to their committee. I'm going to guess, and this is purely a guess, that we'll hear the second week in July who they have selected. I don't have any inside information. That's my gut telling me that, and I lose a lot of time. So, so we will be reaching out to each of those 31 applicants and saying, this is when our July meeting is. If you're selected, we'll ask you to come there. The July board meeting then will be like July board meetings used to be before they changed the law, and we'll have to appoint, or you will have to elect, the new trustees will have to elect a chair and vice chair for the Clearwater Valley trustees, chair and vice chair for the Grangeville trustees, and then a chair and vice chair for the Mountain View trustees. It will be, and then all of those beginning of the year things that you have to do, swearing in and appointing a clerk and all of those kinds of things will have to happen again in July. That's a typical January meeting now, but that will happen in July. Because of the size of the Board of Trustees, okay, I just have to tell you an aside. I tell everybody now I'm a divorce attorney and I work for the firm of Mountain View / Clearwater Valley / Grangeville School District. Anyway, because of the size of the trustees, of the number of people we'll have for our board, our meetings when they're in Grangeville will be at Grangeville High School in the library. That'll give us space. I don't think we could put 10 trustees and the district office staff here and have chairs. The other schools, we still meet in the library, so we'll have room at Clearwater Valley, and at Elk City, we'll likely use the gym, multi-purpose room there as well. So we had tons of applicants. We'll have the July meeting is likely when they will be officially take office.
And if somebody wants a list of who has applied, what should they do?
Good question. Thank you for leaving me out. That is public information. I had to verify that information to get the list of people who have applied to be trustees. It is a public records request, and that is, I don't know that policy number off the top of my head, even though I should. It is on our district's website under policies.
And when is the Board of Education, or State Board Committee meeting next for this issue?
I don't know their date.
They don't have a date yet?
They have selected, I don't know that they'll have a state board meeting. They've selected committee, and the committee will make the selection
and forward it on to them. So
Yes, okay.
that's why I think it's going to be the second week of July before
That
we know anything.
sounds normal.
And then it has to go from the board to the Department of Education
Uh-huh.
through Debbie Critchfield's office. So we might be pushing it to get the second week of July.
I hope so.
Okay.
We do have our public records requests on our district website under Board of Trustees, Policy Manual, and then 4,000 Community Relations, and it's number 4260F1.
Thank
and
you.
It looks like this.
What was it again? The number?
4260 F1.
4260F1.
Okay.
When is our July board meeting?
Oh,
July
Third Thursday.
17th.
Yeah, I think the
I'll
17th.
have,
It's possible we won't have those names back by then. I'm just going to be
Yeah.
honest with
Yeah,
you.
no.
I think we will, but
In that case, then what? Are we
Then
gonna wait another month?
if we don't have the names back, we just continue on as
We're
Mountain
gonna wait
View.
another month? Or can we not set a special meeting?
We
to
could.
get-
they're only
That-
serving.
I keep
that
hearing
would
about how
be-
much there is to do.
That would be your prerogative at that July
Okay.
meeting to set a special meeting, yes. So,
That would be our prerogative at the July meeting to establish, set a special meeting.
to set another meeting, yes.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's what I had under that section.
Okay.
Okay, so we need approval of
You
that?
have to
We have a motion
approve
to
that.
approve that?
Mr. Chairman, I motion to approve the Superintendent of Public Instruction's order under section 33-307 Idaho Code for creation of school districts and legal description of the boundaries.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And moving on to accept canvas from county commissioner.
Okay, in your board packet, you will see the canvas from the election for deconsolidation.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we accept the canvas from the county commissioner.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion, questions? Nothing? All in favor?
Aye.
Ratify negotiations.
In your board packet, you have the proposed negotiated agreement between Mountain View School District and the Central Idaho Education Association. Negotiators this year were Chair Harrington and Vice Chair Dunn.
And I noticed in the cover memo, it says the CIEA has ratified the negotiation, so it rests with us. No other business to be done, correct?
The last step of that is for
Is us.
is for you to approve it.
Do you guys wanna talk about any of the changes that are we good?
I'm not sure they're that, no offense, but they're not, in my opinion, that substantive.
I had a question about,
No, what?
with the deconsolidation,
Didn't matter.
how will this impact?
This is just for
This is just this
the
year.
coming year,
Correct.
so the new districts are
Okay.
gonna have to negotiate their own, is that?
That's correct.
So this will apply to where we're at
Us,
Us.
MVSD.
Isn't it nice to have this?
as a whatever we are,
Yep.
Yes.
you know, for the next year. Okay, all right.
Can I just clarify,
Yeah.
when you go into the 26 and 27 as
Yeah.
to deconsolidated, there will also be two separate associations.
Correct.
Right.
So two separate.
Okay. Okay, yeah, just trying to get my arms around this.
I'm guessing, and to be honest with you, I'm guessing they'll use this as the framework.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
it should likely look much the same,
Yeah.
but then reflective of what the two different associations believe.
Mr. Chairman, do we wanna ask Ms. Peppercorn if she has any comments she'd like to make?
Any inputs? It was very minor.
Yeah, there weren't a whole lot of changes. I mean, the biggest change was to the salary schedule itself, and that was something that neither of us or the district really had too much control over this year because this was state requirements. So, it was 100% of our members who completely agreed with it.
Oh, 100%? Wow, good for you.
On that note, I make a motion we ratify the negotiations as reflected in our board packet.
Second? I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good job.
Approval of classified support salary staff, support staff salary schedule.
What percentage did these go up?
The steps are 3%, but the base went up 2% to reflect the 5% that the state passed through.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's 3 things now instead of 2. So, yeah.
Any discussion on this?
Can we get a motion?
I would make a motion, we approve the athletic wage scale.
Well, wait.
We're on staff.
Oh, staff, sorry,
We
I'm
have
on the wrong one. I was looking at staff and then I was looking at the
Okay.
next
We're on the
one.
salaries right now.
I'm sorry. I looked at them both.
Are you making a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, for the classified support staff.
Yes.
I'll second that.
And we're talking
Yeah,
salary schedule, right? 'Cause we-
Yeah, salary
what
schedule.
Wage is different.
Okay.
Okay.
I seconded.
Is there a second?
And it's
Further
really nice
discussion?
to actually get a C one for the,
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
3 years
second.
ago, we didn't even have one.
yeah.
Oh,
Nobody knew what they were making,
Yes.
or what they were gonna make.
big step. Okay,
Was there a second made?
there was a second, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Next to the classified sports staff wages. Same deal?
Yeah, we can do that again.
We'll make another motion for that?
Yeah. For what?
For the step increase, so on the approval of this support staff, that you're moving that there is a step increase,
The support
matching
staff.
that of the classified staff.
Yes.
Do we have a motion? Motion? Second?
Sure.
You're making a motion for a step increase?
Yeah, for the step
Okay.
increase for the,
Okay, thank you.
yes,
So-
there you go.
Who's seconded?
Me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approval of athletic wage scale.
Yeah, I already did that.
Way ahead of us, way ahead of us.
So do you have a motion for that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
I'll second, or
Yeah.
whoever,
No,
Larry,
go for it.
whoever.
Who's seconded? Who's
I'll
seconded?
second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving through this. Approval of fall sports schedules
Okay, you
and
don't,
out-of-state travel.
Yeah,
you
where
don't
we-
typically approve sports schedules, but because these include out-of-state travel,
Okay.
we are approving those.
Good idea.
What is the out-of-state?
And where is
for?
the
Where is
out-of-state
out-of-state?
travel?
Yeah.
Football?
So, there's a variety of them, I have to find
Not for
them.
football. Oh, maybe soccer?
Grangeville,
Oh, I
football
bet it
doesn't
is
have any. Volleyball has a Clarkston and an Asotin.
Oh,
For volleyball?
And,
I didn't see that.
Clarkston and Asotin, okay.
soccer, it looks like does not, so I
Just
think it's just volleyball.
Okay.
We have to do
Okay.
something we don't really have anything to do with.
I love that those are on Fridays. Do you think they'll stay that way with
Can
the
we
rec
get a
shortage?
motion? I move that we approve the fall sports schedule, including notations as to out-of-state travel.
I'll second it.
Aye.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Board self-evaluation. Have you guys put any more thoughts into that? It never went to the policy committee. I don't know if we wanted the policy committee to look at that.
Can I do one thing?
Yeah.
One of the things that I am doing in preparation for the deconsolidation is reading every single policy, starting at 1,000 to 9,000. And I'm creating a spreadsheet for each one, like, this will work for deconsolidation, this needs to, and then duties of the superintendent and duties of the board and the month that it happens in. It is your policy that you will evaluate yourself yearly, so it does need to happen. By the way, that's riveting reading.
Yeah, I'm
Get a
sure.
lot of sleep.
It makes
Yeah.
answering questions easier.
Well, we can get a motion, then we can talk.
Well, oh yeah, we can put a motion, well, I don't,
We just really need to
I
figure out
almost
which
think
one
we
we
need to
want,
discuss
right?
first. Let's discuss first.
You could discuss before
So-
you make.
You wanna do
So
that?
I
to where we
remember
wanna
doing
go with.
these back in February,
Uh-huh.
and I felt like the SBA ones was the better of the.
Yeah, it was definitely shorter and a little deeper.
We can modify this.
Yeah, we can make our own form. There's
I would
nothing-
almost,
The,
Yeah.
I believe the one that's blue highlighted on the backside, this is, I want to give kudos to Principal Martinez for assisting me with this. What stuck out to me, and I'm the one that forwarded that one that's got draft written all over it. First, I agree, it's too blinking wrong, but that's just a matter of formatting. So to me, this could be cut down by half in length, which then makes it competitive with the ISBA one. As I say in the header of the first page of the assessment that I'm recommending, is I like it because it tends to, and let me preface this, I think we need to work as a board, both individually and collectively, on our system responsibilities and interaction processes first, as opposed to personal development in terms of priority time issues. And that's where I think this assessment excels. And that's the primary reason that I forwarded it. I will also say that I recognize that no matter what we do on the assessment, this is somebody else's idea of what ought to be important to us. And we always still maintain the ability to make turns and do things the way we want to anyway. So I would like to not spend too much time on this, because I'm not sure how helpful it is, to be honest with you.
my personal preference is I actually want it to be more of an assessment of each individual, because there's a lot more accountability with that. And this one is more of the board in general. So it kind of passes the buck. Well, the board isn't doing this. The board is, well, what am I doing, or what are you doing? I like it to be, it's a little more uncomfortable, but I like it to be a little more personal. And the other one, the ISBAs are a little more personal, and we could actually make it a little more personal, but that's your discretion.
Just in response, and I don't disagree conceptually with what you're talking about. I kind of got off on this based on what the superintendent said, and that is, we do nothing except as a group. We don't make decisions, we don't process, we don't do anything. And that's why I think we need to work on our structural skills. Like, one of the things that just irritates this dog water out of me is this open meeting law, because how in the world can we get through things of any substance whatsoever if we have to go from scratch as a group in this format once a month? To me, that's a big deal. That's our primary responsibility, is organizationally speaking, not personal development wise. So that's why I'm recommending the other one.
We could do more workshops though and more trainings, we just don't. And that would give us time to work together and kind of get a direction together. We just don't do it.
We don't do it, but you.
Now that 31 people have set forth their names, there is a mandate of 8 hours of development.
I get
for
that.
all
And
entities.
you're helping me make my point, Ms. Edwards, is we make decisions and we process as a group, not as individuals. And so I think we just need to work on that first as the priority. The individual things, like I need to learn to say please and thank you more often, it's just different. But it's not primary to our responsibility. And I'll be glad to sit down with another member who wants to go over these and make a new form that we can actually get through in less than an hour, right?
Yeah, it was just like the columns, what?
It's hard to, you gotta kind of get used to it as you just read it. Just keep reading, and all of a sudden you, oh, that works with this and that works with that. Because it's actually got 5 elements to every question, even though 4 columns are listed. It's interesting. Mr. Martinez forwarded this to me, and it took me a couple of looks at it to figure out how it would work. And I just thought it was from a utilitarian perspective more useful to us going forward.
I do think it would be like 4 pages if extended the font, or the text, and then did a vertical numbers instead of a,
Yeah, we can format it
Horizontal
any way you
numbers.
want. Suggestions welcome.
because right now it's 20 pages.
Oh, it's ridiculous. But also, look how, I mean, it's so spread out, and it's like, it's crazy. I think they intended to have somebody do it by hand.
So we
So
agree
that's
that it needs,
self-assessment, correct?
I mean,
The
none
board
of
is
these are
assessing themselves.
to our liking, right?
Like the board as a
There
whole
will
is a
need,
self.
we need modification.
Yeah.
We need to decide who's gonna do that modification. Do we want the policy committee to be in charge of this? Do we want trustees to be
No.
in charge of this?
It's not a policy
Not a
matter.
policy.
Trustees.
Well, I'll volunteer to go through the ones that I feel that we need. But I don't know if we all need to bring our own
is
to
there
the
like a
table or
rule
what
of
we
how
wanna
many
do.
So
questions
this really
that we have
smart
to
guy
have?
that I live with, he says to me when
Not your
when I
husband.
have my hand on the hammer clear up at the head instead of at the end of it, he says
Right.
it's not the tool, it's how you use it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And
right.
so it isn't the tool, it's how you use it, it's
That's
your
right.
process. So get your hand off the head of the hammer and get it at the end of the hammer so that it has some,
Use momentum.
Yeah.
yes.
Has some
And so
actual utility.
I think,
We all choose
I'm
a
just gonna say, regardless of what tool you use, how are you going to use it? How are you going to grow from that self-assessment? How often, if it's a one and done, it's not worth your time. If you're only going to do it once a year, it's not worth your time. If it's not something that's in front of you all of the time, it's not the tool, it's how you use it. So I'm just gonna leave it at that and let you do
No, I
what you
think
want.
this is
Which
really
is-
cumbersome.
Yeah.
Like,
Which is why I go
once a
back to
month.
prioritizing what our objectives in using something like
You
this.
could
What's
do
our
it
first
quarterly.
most important thing?
Well, and I think we could just have a summary page, like what is our most important thing? And like we could all decide that. Like, and we
That's a
could,
survey.
that would be, well, that would just be
Yeah.
our guidance for the year. Like, are we doing this? Like, rather than evaluate ourselves once a year and never look at it again. I mean, I think we do need to really, what are our goals for the year? And then can we check them off when we've met them?
I like that.
Just something
Would
a
you
little
like
more.
to shift towards more of that, a goal-oriented
Yeah.
focus?
Like
We could do
Miss-
that too.
Superintendent Holehouse was coming up with some goals and
Mhm.
things like that. Like, I feel like we really need to work on, like, that is our focus, not,
August will be focused on strategic plan and goals for the
Yes.
year.
Yep.
Should this be put off
mean,
until
like-
we have the two new boards, you know,
Well, we-
sitting and, you know?
Well, right now, we're just talking about development, right?
Yeah.
So,
You can do a no action if you so choose.
Yeah.
I
Like I personally think it's a waste
make a
of paper,
motion
but-
for
You
no
don't do
action.
a, no- you don't make a motion.
I know.
No action,
You can do a no action.
but we need to, I mean, I think we need to discuss this a little further to be.
well, and with us ending, I mean, there's, might be a few of us not on the board anymore.
But come August, we,
Could all be out of a job.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
The
will
job
do
be
that.
okay.
pays,
We'll be
Larry.
okay.
Hmm?
The job pays.
I get richly rewarded.
So obviously, we're not gonna, so no action, we're gonna do no
You
action.
wanna do
but
no action on it? Okay.
That's what we're gonna do. But
you
at
for
this
your work,
point in
though.
time, we're not,
Yeah.
I feel like the board wants to move away from more evaluation and more goal orientation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd
I
second
mean,
that.
I'm
'cause
okay with that.
you're just gonna go,
But in the goals,
but
we
and the goals
evaluate
might
ourselves.
have,
We're still
something
like
to-
using our last year
Right.
to guide us to this year.
And I think
Right?
those evaluations, we should be doing something on a monthly basis, you know, just because. Again, we need to sit and look in the mirror.
and
All
say,
right.
how can I
If
be a
we
better
actually
human
do
being
anything
today?
and-
Where we
Yeah.
at? How we doing?
Yeah.
Do that every morning.
We have like a running list of like, this is what we're
Let's
focused
talk about
on
it.
this year.
Yeah,
If we check it off the list, we can erase it, but if, as we add more
Publish it,
goals, we can
yeah.
just
Yeah,
add that.
again,
An
just-
ongoing goal list, maybe?
Yeah.
yeah.
We don't have to make the
Something-
decision now, I'm just.
Again, something that,
Very good.
again, maybe that is very informal, but at least it provides us some direction of what we're doing and where we are trying to go.
Yeah.
Don't we have something else like that?
Continuous improvement plan.
In your
There's a
strategic
strategic
plan, your
probably
continuous
same
improvement
thing?
plan, their two
It'll
different
go,
things,
it'll go
strategic
hand in
Still
hand
no
with
action.
that,
Okay.
Still no
Alright.
action.
Okay.
with the
So after
strategic
discussion,
plans.
no action taken.
We're probably gonna take this up in August, if any of us are still around in August, because that'll be the new boards. But just thinking in the back of our minds, if we're on that, we'll head that direction. Okay. Approval of policies, Series 3000.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we roll this over to a third reading, or potentially take it off the agenda entirely until something else develops. So I would make a motion that we, if we need a motion, to move
Do
it.
a no action if you want a no action on it.
Okay, I'd just like to get a little bit of an explanation why.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so I'd ask for no action on the policy. When we went to the policy meeting, Mrs. Edwards was there, and as was the superintendent, and Amanda Bush was there, a couple of patrons and stuff, that I was very surprised at where the conversation went. One of the reasons for forwarding this in the first place was to generate some interest in this district developing a proactive thought process regarding how to deal with some potential disruptive influences as these subject matters can be and are still for many school districts throughout the country and frankly in Idaho. So that was the underlying reason for it. There's no problem here or anything that I see. But what came out of the meeting that I thought was really interesting, and I'll be very brief. I have 4 points I want to make that I would hope I could find time, or actually Mrs. Holthouse could find time to sit down with me and just discuss these questions. There were some things, namely, I'll just pick two off the top of my head that I remembered. Number 6, school facilities, and number 12, what's called compelled speech, that have already been dealt with in Idaho law, okay? So I'm just thinking, well, that brought to mind 4 questions, and I'll share a copy of this with anybody if they want to track this with me. So a question I have, which I want to work with the superintendent to learn about these things, is how does the district uniformly and consistently communicate changes in law and compliant expectations to staff, and how is that documented? How does the district notify parents and patrons of changes in law, and how that's going to affect them, if at all? Should we not build a separate, distinct, user-friendly database? Hello, Michael. On our website that staff and patrons can refer to as needed to track changes in law in the interest of good communication. And then what policies and procedures might we need to establish specifically regarding changes in law, such as what's recommended above that impact our district going forward. So it just sounds to me like it's an organizational, a lot of half of this memo. Yeah, absolutely. Can you give one to? Oh, great. You can keep it. So to me, it sounds like an organizational. Some of these questions have already been answered. Obviously, Mrs. Bush brought up, well, we're already dealing with that. Well, how are you dealing with it is my question. So it's a good learning thing for the public and for us. God forbid we ever have to deal with one of these subjects because of something that surprises us out of the middle of nowhere, which is kind of my intention, is to be proactive here. So with that said, I'd like to take this general topic, take this proposed policy off the table for a minute, and I'd like to talk to the superintendent about where we might go vis-a-vis policy or procedural development, or whatever we want to call it, on the issues that I just talked about. So that's where I'm coming from with this, if everybody's all right with indefinitely tabling the policy proposal.
May I answer sort of it? I think
Yeah,
it's deeper
sure.
than this, but, so every year after the legislature meets, they have the post-legislative roadshow, which is in each region.
Yeah.
They have a meeting, and they go through all of those changes, give you the laws, the changes in the laws, and then I come back and I share those with the leadership team. So the leadership team is made up of the building principals, the support staff here at the district office, and so we go through those. These, and we problem solve those. Like, how is that going to be a problem? I think it was it had to have been 3 years. It was my last year as a superintendent in St. Mary's, is when they said that you have to use the facility for the correct sex, whichever one you are, which led to an unintended consequence of when we have a basketball game, we put one team in the girls' locker room and one team in the boys' locker room, and now you have it labeled boys and girls, and we're putting boys in the girls' room, or vice versa. And so then we had conversations in that leadership team meeting, not in this district, I wasn't here then, about how do we meet the letter of the law?
Right.
And so that's when we put visitor locker room signs up, those kinds of things. And so as those laws, each spring, as they're explained to us after they've finished in Boise, then superintendent comes back, shares them. I believe Amanda Bush went to the one last year. So when she was talking in policy committee, she was like, oh, well, that's why she was referring to it. I didn't get to go to the legislative roadshow last year because I was just a person. Anyway, so I didn't get to, but she got to. So somebody from the district always attends those. And then they send them out to us in a PowerPoint. I don't know that we should just hand out the PowerPoint. That's someone's professional information. And informing the patrons, that's a good question. I'm not sure about that.
So the State Department of Ed publishes their roadshow on their website every year, don't they?
Do they have the PowerPoint on there?
I'm pretty sure. I've looked at it.
Well, let me go back.
There it
You
is.
brought up, I guess it's been 3 years ago, when they passed the law about the bathrooms, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The last thing that I remember that this board, we had different members at the time, but the last thing I remember is we're waiting for guidance from the state. Never heard a word after that. So I'm just saying we need to connect the loop somehow on these different levels. I know, for example, the Idaho High School Athletics Association, if I have their big long name, is in fact looking at their policy. And I've been in contact with them several times, and their attorneys haven't given it back, and it's been like 2 months. So it can get a little sticky, but I just think we need to close the loop, make sure we're including the public, and even if it's just saying, thank you, even if it's just saying, hey, by the way, there's been a change in law, here's how we're handling it, just thought you should know. That's a courtesy, because it may impact somebody. Somebody may have a question. It's just good, I think it's just good public policy to share information.
And I agree that sometimes things get lost. For instance, we have a requirement of a course that we have to offer at the high school level, and the state said that they would provide the curriculum, and we're still waiting for that.
Yeah.
And school starts soon. I know you don't think so, but it does. So,
Whatever it feels like it.
and so yes, it does get lost. Let me think about how we can get that.
Yeah.
Well,
Putting that out, maybe.
Whenever I had questions, I just went to the legislative roadshow once they posted it, and that's how I got caught up on what had happened in that legislative session.
So you know,
that
that's
affected the
a
schools.
perfect example. I've never heard of that until right now.
I just do Google search.
I know, I'm talking about it as an organization. Okay, as an organization, because it affects all of us in one way or another, because one, we should be informed, especially allegedly we're supposed to be in charge of something here. And two, we have a professional responsibility, which nobody's doubting is being handled, but how are we communicating that to the public? What should their expectations be? Maybe they're over-expecting something. Maybe it's a nothing, it's just information. Don't worry about it, we're good.
So sharing a link to that.
Something,
Might be
something.
really on our
I'm
website.
just looking for how we can do better, and then we can circle back around and touch on these individual issues, which I don't want to see go by the wayside, but I don't doubt that.
And
there
Larry,
may be
I'm
a couple
guessing
of those.
you wrote that.
Do what to who?
Did you write that?
Write what? Which part?
That draft?
No, I did not. I
took it
changed
from
it.
some
I
other-
actually got that. I misspoke. I originally said I got it from Salmon School District. Let's just shorten this up. I misspoke and named a different district. I got it from Salmon
No,
School
you said
District.
salmon.
Did I?
Yeah.
Second time. I thought I said.
No, I
thought
think
said
you
Blackfoot.
clarified. You
Yeah.
clarified.
I
You had a different
clarified,
district,
yeah.
then you clarified.
As my understanding, there's, at least in terms of when I submitted this thing, there's either 20 or 21 school districts that have adopted this almost verbatim. I, of course, always have to change a little language, so I did some of that because I thought it fit us better. But anyway,
I like the verbiage.
it's a contemporary subject area, and I think I have a responsibility as a trustee to do risk management when I see it and raise the question. So that's what this is.
Well,
Okay?
and I don't know, I guess from not getting answers for so long, I went out and sought those answers, and the State Department of Ed has an incredible website.
Okay.
They have a ton of archives. I mean, I'm just saying for anybody in the audience who wants to like do some investigating, it's pretty interesting, like who gets paid what, and they have like the whole state of Idaho of like,
They have open
what a
meeting laws on there.
comptroller, business manager, actually, she's the only comptroller in the state. But business managers are, paid, and so you can kind of start seeing like similarities and like, just do some comparisons. Same with food service, like it's all on their website. It just takes a little bit of time to look at the
Navigate it.
spreadsheets, but it's pretty amazing.
Be good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with AI now, you can just search it and it comes up with the actual website and everything for you.
That's all I have.
So I did a no action there.
No action?
No action.
Moving on to informational items.
Excuse me, as far as I'm concerned, if you're okay, we can just take it off the agenda for now.
For next.
Yeah,
Okay,
is that all right?
I won't add it on until
Yeah.
I get told to do otherwise.
Okay, cool.
And the last thing there on the valuation, if you remember, 9 months ago, we started talking about doing an inventory in the district, and we did sign up at that time to do the inventory. It's a little bit like waiting for Sasquatch. You hear a lot about them, but you've never really seen them. We are hearing that they are supposed to show up in the next few weeks. So that will be happening. We did, because of the change, Carly talked about the changes in our property and loss insurance. Because of those changes, we need new valuations. We'll be going to an RFP next year for insurance to try to get those prices down. And so we'll need valuations of our buildings, what our buildings and properties are with. So we are adding that to that package to have them do that.
Didn't we do that last year?
I was
Didn't
gonna
that
say,
guy
didn't
come
that
and
guy come?
value it for us already?
He came, that was Rich Boucher, he came in and evaluated and gave us a score of 86, woohoo, but not how much it was worth.
Okay.
Not your
Oh,
buildings and
okay.
what they were worth.
I thought there was dollars on it.
No, this is just like if we were to have a catastrophic loss, what it would
Right,
cost to
that's what it was
replace
going to cost
Grangeville High
replace
School,
it.
to
Does the
replace.
county have any of that? Does the county do any of that?
Not
Because
replace.
like the assessors have like every house in the county, but.
There's often a difference between assessed value and replace value.
And just one more
Um,
request, Madam
I
Clerk,
don't
if you'd
know.
make a note of this on the minutes, I'd appreciate it. Before we reinstitute the policy committee, which I understand may be months down the road, I'd appreciate an opportunity to talk about the things you and I discussed. Probably we need a policy for that committee like we do for, if we're going to adopt it as a regular ongoing thing with the board, we need to get some things.
So what do you want me to do?
Just make a note that I'm requesting before, to the superintendent, I'm simply asking before we, what would be the word, reconstitute the policy committee, that we have a discussion about some policy development for that.
And you want that in the minutes?
Yeah.
Under what? 'Cause I
Under
don't have
just
an agenda
information.
item. I don't have an information item for
think-
that. I can't add that
I
in.
think he wants it under the 3,000s where he's
Okay.
tabling his,
Okay,
that
put it under there.
policy.
Just-
Okay,
just
don't
wanna-
leave and you're gonna tell me the exact wording before you walk out
Okay,
of here.
just making it right.
We're good? A motion to adjourn?
I want to say
You
it,
done?
I'm going to do it, so moved.
So moved.
I need a motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second?
2.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.